The kingdom of Salone is famous for one person, Princess Beatrice. Known as the Venus of Salone, she's celebrated as a legendary beauty and a moral compass for the entire continent. However, her younger sister, Lariette, is devastated by Beatrice's impending marriage. She rushes to her sister, begging her to call off the wedding so they can stay together. Lariette clings to her, declaring she loves her more than anyone, even Duke Saint Cyr. Beatrice calmly explains that the love for family is different from the love for a partner. Beatrice explains her dream is to become the Duke's wife, assuring Lariette she will understand this kind of love one day. Intrigued, Lariette wonders what could make her sister so happy. Beatrice then suggests Lariette meet the visiting Prince Narcisse, but she immediately dismisses the idea. Lariette declares the prince is too pretty for her taste, and that she honestly prefers animals over men. Beatrice then brings up the Grand Duke of Acheron, only to quickly retract the suggestion with a serious expression, leaving Lariette stunned by her sister's rare disapproval. Beatrice explains why she's so against the Grand Duke. The House of Acheron is the most powerful noble family in the empire, but they are notoriously private. Dark rumors surround them, including whispers of a hereditary illness. Though Beatrice tries not to believe gossip, she worries for her sister. Noticing Beatrice's hand trembling as she holds the teapot, Lariette immediately drops the subject. Just then, their mother, Queen Ceres, enters. She announces that Prince Narcisse has arrived and has decided Lariette will greet him instead of Beatrice. The queen's formal tone vanishes when she realizes her eldest daughter is out of bed, scolding her for being up after coughing all night and ordering her to rest immediately. Beatrice tries to reassure her mother she's fine, but her words are cut short by a severe coughing fit. She nearly collapses, but Lariette lunges forward to support her. The room erupts in panic as Queen Ceres shouts for the royal physician to be brought at once. After Beatrice is settled in bed, the queen unleashes her frustration on Lariette, scolding her for being careless. Taking the blame, Lariette apologizes for being thoughtless. She then volunteers to meet the crown prince, asking her mother to please stay by her sister's side. As Lariette nervously heads to meet the prince, she thinks she should have worn gloves. She walks down the long, sunlit hall and pushes open the parlor doors. But as she steps through, she bumps directly into a man leaving the room. He quickly catches her arm to keep her from falling, asking if she's all right. A bit flustered, Lariette assures him she's fine and asks who he is. The man introduces himself with a formal title. He is Kwon Acheron, the Grand Duke, and he came to see Princess Beatrice. A sudden memory makes Lariette burst into laughter, catching the Duke completely off guard. With a bright smile, she properly introduces herself as Lariette de Salone, explaining that the famous Princess Beatrice is her sister. The realization hits Kwon, who immediately offers a deep, formal bow, apologizing for his grave mistake. Lariette is surprised by his intense reaction, but he insists the fault was his. She understands that misnaming someone is a serious insult in high society, but she quickly concludes that this foreign duke simply made an honest mistake. Lariette decides to be gracious, telling the rigid duke she'll let the mistake slide this once. As a thank you, Kwon opens the parlor door for her, claiming it's only right since he blocked her path. She's used to being overlooked in favor of her famous sister, so Kwon's directness is a refreshing change, and she finds him interesting. Just then, a smooth voice calls out to her. Lariette turns to find her actual appointment, Prince Narcisse, lounging inside with a sly smile and asking how she's been. Inside the parlor, Prince Narcisse cuts right to the chase, asking about her sister, Beatrice. He calls Beatrice's upcoming marriage to a commoner a waste of her talent, which visibly annoys Lariette. She silently defends her sister's choice, wishing the prince would be more considerate. Narcisse simply smirks, enjoying her reaction before changing the subject to his cousin, Kwon. Lariette explains the greeting was normal, besides the initial mix-up. She admits his height was a little surprising up close. With a chilling smile, Narcisse declares that he wants her to marry Kwon. Lariette is stunned, asking if she heard him correctly. She tries to laugh it off, reminding Prince Narcisse that he knows she has no interest in men. Attempting to redirect the conversation, she says he should be focused on her sister's upcoming wedding. But the prince's friendly demeanor vanishes. He reveals he isn't there for Beatrice at all. He's there for Lariette's marriage. With a cold look, he orders her to marry Kwon and act as his spy, admitting he wants his cousin removed from the picture permanently. The princess freezes in terror. Lariette stands abruptly, pulling free from the prince's grip. She declares that he has gone too far and that she will not be his political pawn, threatening to report his actions to a higher authority. Unfazed, Narcisse calmly changes the subject. He asks if Beatrice drank the tea he sent her, mentioning it's good for expectant mothers. With a chilling smile, he suggests it would be a tragedy if anything happened to the pregnant princess. The weight of his threat crashes down on Lariette, leaving her frozen in absolute horror. A few minutes earlier, an attendant informs Prince Narcisse and Kane that Lariette has left the palace. Narcisse smirks, asking his cousin about the Salone Kingdom's famous specialty, women. He remarks that while Beatrice is considered the beauty, he personally desires the plain Lariette. Disgusted by the comment, Kane cuts him off cold. He tells the prince that his overpowering stench is disgraceful and warns him to preserve some human decency. The powerful Grand Duke makes it clear he won't let Narcisse's behavior tarnish the imperial family's name. Narcisse dismisses Kane's lecture, taunting him about getting politically close to his sister. In response, Kane rises to his feet without permission. Unfazed by the prince's attempt to assert dominance, the Grand Duke makes his position clear. His loyalty is to the emperor alone, and he tells Narcisse to earn the right to command him. As Kane walks away, he thinks about how the prince's arrogance has never changed. A dark, violent memory flashes through his mind, hinting at their grim history and the conflict brewing just beneath the surface. Kane leaves, disgusted by the prince's crude words and needing to clear his head. He's stopped in his tracks by a stunning woman. Mistaking her for the famous beauty Beatrice, he's instantly captivated. In his mind, she looks like a fairy. Lariette, however, is simply curious about the man marrying her sister. With a polite laugh, she introduces herself, clarifying that she is Lariette, not the bride-to-be. Kane grimaces, realizing just how wrong Narcisse was about her being plain. Internally, Kane scoffs at the prince's terrible judgment, deciding his arrogance must have damaged his eyesight. Lariette simply thanks him for holding the door open. As she passes by, the sweet scent of peaches catches him off guard. A protective instinct flares up as he imagines Narcisse as a hungry wolf cornering an innocent girl. Shaking himself back to reality, he leaves. Later, Lariette asks her sister Beatrice if she enjoyed the tea she sent, casually mentioning it's good for expectant mothers, revealing the reason for the blackmail. Lariette stands her ground, declaring that the prince will not harm her sister. But Narcisse just smirks, easily guessing her plan to find Kane's weaknesses. He finds her attempt to gain leverage amusing. The prince then drops the act, threatening to leak Beatrice's premarital pregnancy to the public. He paints a grim picture of her sister's reputation being destroyed by a scandal. Narcisse coldly admits that he gets what he wants, no matter the cost. He warns that even if he's disgraced, he'll drag Beatrice down with him, leaving Lariette completely trapped. The prince reveals his true nature, a god of malice manipulating everyone. He gives Lariette her mission: marry Kane for 1 year, find his weaknesses, and then he will arrange a divorce. Lariette is crushed, realizing her entire friendship with him was a lie. Memories of their happy childhood shatter as she understands he only ever used her for political gain. The genuine affection she felt for him was just a naive mistake. Defeated, she turns to leave, her mind racing. How did he find out her sister's secret? Lariette's mind spirals as she wonders if a traitor is responsible for leaking her sister's secret. She knows Beatrice is in a delicate condition, and any further stress could be dangerous for her. Desperate, she heads to her sister's room. Beatrice greets her with concern, but Lariette's gaze lands on a new birdcage. Her sister explains it's a surprise gift from Prince Narcisse. Inside, a gold bird and a black bird sit side by side. The message is clear and cruel. Lariette understands they are now the prince's caged pets, their every move watched. Lariette's control finally snaps. Filled with rage, she declares she's throwing the birdcage away. Beatrice, confused by the sudden outburst, tries to calm her down, explaining it's a gift from the prince. Lariette ignores her, grabbing the cage and attempting to force the birds out the window. In her frantic state, she injures her hand. Her sister begs her to stop, but Lariette rushes to the balcony. She screams that from now on, everyone from the Empire is banned from entering their home, a desperate act of defiance. Lariette's strength gives out after her outburst. Beatrice catches her, asking gently what's wrong. Lariette looks up, her eyes filled with tears and fear. She warns her sister not to drink the tea or take the first bite of food from the Empire. Then, she demands they fire everyone: the doctor, the cook, the maids. Instead of arguing, Beatrice calmly agrees, promising to do whatever Lariat asks. The sisters embrace. In that moment, Lariat's resolve hardens. She knows there's no other way to protect her sister. She has to go to the Grand Duke. Lariat thinks about her sister's dream of finding true love and building a life with someone. But for her, that path is closed. Protecting Beatrice is her only duty, and that means marrying Grand Duke Kane. As she sits alone, a voice suddenly breaks the silence. It's Kane Acheron himself, asking why she's outside without her guards. Lariat looks up, completely stunned. This is the man she has to seduce to save her family, but she is nowhere near ready to start her mission. The timing couldn't be worse. Lariat tries to compose herself, stammering out Duke Acheron's name. Internally, she's in a total panic. This is the man she has to marry, but she is nowhere near ready for this. Kane, however, mistakes her shock for discomfort. He apologizes for intruding on her private garden and turns to leave. Realizing her one chance is walking away, Lariat scrambles to her feet. Desperate to keep him there, she blurts out the first random question that pops into her head, asking the imposing Duke if he likes animals. Kane simply turns back, completely bewildered. Lariat quickly explains her love for all animals, adding that her sister's allergy is the only reason she doesn't have pets. But her attempt at small talk fails spectacularly when Kane bluntly states he dislikes them. Internally panicking, Lariat's idea of seduction turns into a clumsy interrogation about his ideal woman. Kane immediately shuts down the inappropriate questions, calling them unsuitable for conversation. Seeing her plan crumble, Lariat quickly asks him not to mention a lost birdcage to Prince Narcisse. This finally catches Kane's attention, and he asks if the prince gave it to her. Lariat confirms the cage was empty, hiding the fact that there was ever a bird inside. To her surprise, Kane offers to carry it for her. As she stumbles, the cage clatters to the ground. The Duke effortlessly lifts it, reminding her to be careful with her injured hand. Genuinely impressed, Lariat gushes about how strong he is for lifting it with one hand. Internally, Kane finds her simple admiration charming. She offers to help, but he coolly insists it's no burden and tells her not to worry. Lariat insists she only wanted to share responsibility, but Kane remains firm, stating that's precisely why he should carry it alone. Internally, she grows frustrated with his impenetrable politeness, wondering how she'll ever get close to him. When he asks where to put the cage, she sees an opportunity. Flashing a bright smile, Lariat boldly asks him to take it all the way to her bedroom. The unexpected request catches him off guard, but he ultimately leaves the cage just outside in the corridor, dashing her hopes. Lariat understands why he wouldn't enter her room, but she's not ready to give up. Flashing a charming smile, she offers Kane a cup of tea to thank him, boasting that she will brew it herself. However, the Duke is completely unfazed. He coolly dismisses the gesture as unnecessary, stating it was simply his duty before turning to leave. Utterly defeated, Lariat feels like she's hit an iron wall. With only a week until the wedding, she tries moving the heavy cage herself, crying out as pain shoots through her injured hand. Her sharp cry of pain stopped Kane in his tracks. As Lariat struggled with the heavy cage, she suddenly lost her balance and collapsed onto the floor. Kane rushed to help but couldn't bring himself to touch a royal, watching her fall. He apologized deeply, explaining the strict protocol. Lariat insisted it was fine, just a mistake made while trying to help. Unconvinced, Kane declared that even if it was a mistake, the fault was still his, showing the first crack in his cold exterior. Seeing a chance to break the tension, Lariat cheerfully tells Kane his apology is too harsh and that she forgives him. Seizing the opportunity, Kane asks for permission to look at her injured hand. Realizing her seduction plan is a total flop, she shifts tactics to simple conversation, asking about his family. She says she heard he has 3 younger siblings and imagines it must be fun. However, Kane immediately shuts her down, bluntly calling her desire to care for family unnecessary labor for a princess, leaving Lariat completely baffled. Kane coldly insists that royal duty comes before family. Lariat argues back, stating that caring for siblings is the responsibility of the eldest. Uninterested in debating family dynamics, Kane suddenly changes the subject, demanding to know how a princess received such a nasty injury on her hand. As he skillfully tends to her wound with surprising gentleness, Lariat compliments his delicate touch. A flustered Kane admits his skill comes from frequently treating his own training injuries, revealing a rare moment of vulnerability beneath his tough exterior. Lariat momentarily wishes she'd learned first aid sooner to help her sister, then takes the ointment from Kane to apply it herself. As she works the cream onto his skin, she innocently comments on the pleasant, tingling sensation. Completely unaware of any double meaning, she looks up and asks if she's using too much, admitting it's her first time doing this. Kane is left utterly speechless. The once stoic Duke can only stare back, completely flustered, as Lariat's naive question completely changes the atmosphere between them. Startled by his intense reaction, Lariat fumbles with the ointment. It spills onto his clothes, and she immediately apologizes for her clumsiness. In her haste, the entire jar slips from her fingers and clatters to the floor. Before she can react to the mess, Kane suddenly grabs her wrist, pulling her directly toward him. His usual cold expression is gone, replaced by a focused, heated gaze. Completely caught off guard by the abrupt change, a stunned Lariat can only stammer his title, questioning his sudden, possessive action. Breaking from his intense state, Kane quickly lets go of her wrist. He awkwardly apologizes, deciding the ointment is no longer necessary. Instead, he offers to wrap the bandage for her himself. Once her hand is treated, he makes a hasty exit, offering another apology for his discourtesies and telling her to rest well. Lariat is left completely dumbfounded by his sudden change in behavior and swift departure. She sits alone in the quiet room, wondering if she somehow did something wrong to make the stoic Duke flee like that. On the other side of the door, Kane leans back, struggling to compose himself after his hasty retreat. He's completely flustered, berating himself for losing his cool and treating the princess so poorly. Lariat, however, isn't deterred by his confusing behavior. Taking the initiative, she follows him directly to his private chambers. Kane is stunned to find her suddenly in his room. As she closes the distance between them, he can only stammer, asking how she managed to get inside his personal space, completely unprepared for her bold move. Lariat gently cups Kane's face, dismissing his concerns as unimportant for now. Completely losing his composure, Kane gives in and buries his face in her shoulder. He gets a bit too intense, causing her to playfully warn him not to bite. Realizing he's now putty in her hands, Lariat smiles. She declares that since he wronged her earlier, his punishment is to make her feel better. Defeated and enthralled, Kane's hand moves upwards along her leg as he whispers his immediate agreement. The atmosphere in the room shifts completely as Kane leans over Lariat, his usual cold demeanor gone. He looks down at her, his expression intense, and asks for her permission to kiss her. Without any hesitation, she whispers her consent. After they share a significant moment that deepens their connection, he looks at her seriously. He tells the princess that from this point on, if she wants him to stop, she must be the one to give the order. He makes it clear that all the power is now hers. Lariat encourages him to continue, whispering his name and giving him her complete trust. Their private moment deepens their connection in a way neither of them had anticipated. The next morning, a loud bell pulls a dazed Kane from his sleep. He sits bolt upright in bed, completely stunned. Seeing Lariat, a deep blush covers his face. He hides his expression behind his hand, calling her a lunatic under his breath. The famously cold Duke is utterly overwhelmed by the feelings she now stirs within him, completely defeated by their night together. Lariat finally wakes, feeling guilty about having to deceive the Grand Duke after their night together. Her thoughts are interrupted by a familiar chirp. The little bird from yesterday returns, boldly landing on her outstretched finger. Lariat instantly recognizes it as one of Prince Narcisse's spies and tells it to leave. However, her anger vanishes when she sees how cute it is. Deciding the animal is innocent, she lets it stay, noticing how its pretty black feathers remind her of Kane. The bird seems to puff up with pride at the compliment. Deciding to use the spy bird to her advantage, Lariat officially recruits it, naming it Shushu. With her tiny new partner on her shoulder, she declares their first mission is to gather intel on the Grand Duke. Lariat prepares to contact Prince Narcisse to begin her operation, but before she can, her own device rings. It's Kane on the other end. He asks if she's awake, admitting he stayed up all night thinking and has something important to ask. Caught completely off guard, Lariat is stunned into silence, leaving him confused. Kane urges a sleepy Lariat to wake up, confirming he's fully alert. Lariat is completely baffled, wondering why the Grand Duke is answering the prince's line. Trying to recover from her shock, she nervously asks about his plans for the day. Kane explains that he's presenting a Doberman, a hunting dog gifted from Prince Narcisse. Lariat mishears and gets excited about a puppy. Kane corrects her, but before he can say she doesn't need to come, she enthusiastically declares she'll be there and tells him to wait. The line goes dead before Kane can react, leaving him holding the receiver in stunned silence. He calls out for the princess, but there's no answer. A sense of urgency hits him as he runs a hand through his hair, realizing the situation is not ideal. He worries about the side of himself she is about to encounter. Later, Lariat arrives at the crowded venue, looking for the Grand Duke. She's buzzing with excitement, seeing this as a golden opportunity to see the puppy and advance her mission with Kane. Lariat finally finds Kane and wastes no time, excitedly asking where the puppy is. The Grand Duke, however, seems keen to get rid of her. He promises to show her the Doberman later and tries to escort her away immediately. Refusing to be dismissed, Lariat grabs his arm, insisting she wants to see the dog now. But when she looks up at him, her smile vanishes. A chilling, inhuman glint flashes in his eyes, revealing a side of him that leaves her completely paralyzed with fear and confusion. The joyous reunion Lariat imagined vanishes in an instant. Before her, a massive, muzzled Doberman looms over a tiny, trembling puppy. Completely stunned, she asks what's going on. A nearby man cheerfully explains that Prince Narcisse sent both dogs, and they were just about to make them fight. Lariat is appalled. Her voice cuts through the crowd with absolute authority as she declares such barbaric acts are forbidden in her palace. She commands them to stop the cruel spectacle immediately and separate the dogs, defying the prince's twisted entertainment. Kane steps in, his voice dangerously low as he commands the men to obey the princess. The handlers hastily agree, but one of them accidentally fumbles the leash. Suddenly free, the massive Doberman lunges forward, its eyes locked on the tiny, defenseless puppy. In a flash, Kane draws a firearm and takes aim at the charging dog. Lariat screams in horror, desperately pleading for him not to shoot, caught between two terrible outcomes. Without a second thought, Lariat places herself directly in the line of fire. She frantically begs Kane not to shoot, explaining that the Doberman is muzzled and can't actually bite the puppy. Her logic cuts through his cold resolve. Kane seizes the massive dog's leash, effortlessly controlling the beast. He then barks an order at a stunned servant to rescue the small dog. When the man freezes in fear, Kane shouts at him to hurry up and get the puppy to safety before it's too late. With the servant frozen in fear, Lariat decided to handle it herself. She rushed forward and swiftly scooped the tiny, trembling puppy into her arms. At that moment, the enraged Doberman lunged, its teeth bared behind the muzzle. Kane shouted a desperate warning for her to be careful. He wrestled with the powerful animal, using all his strength to yank the leash back. With a final, decisive pull, he overpowered the beast and began dragging it away, ending the immediate danger. Lariat held the rescued puppy close, still shaken. As Lariat catches her breath, a stern man with piercing blue eyes approaches, holding the Doberman's discarded muzzle. He warns her to keep her distance from the damaged cage, noting its weak foundation. Suddenly, Kane rushes to Lariat's side, completely ignoring the other man. His entire focus is on her as he urgently asks if she's been hurt. Lariat dismisses his concern with a nervous laugh, saying she's a mess. Unconvinced, Kane gently insists she must receive treatment and offers to escort her to the infirmary himself. In the infirmary, Lariat learns her wound isn't deep. With her arm and cheek bandaged, she turns to Kane and apologizes, saying he was almost hurt because of her. Kane immediately shuts down her apology. Instead, he sternly tells her that jumping into such a dangerous situation was reckless and orders her never to do it again. However, his tone softens. He admits her judgment was rational, explaining that fighting dogs are usually just scared. Lariat's expression brightens as she agrees, believing the situation could be handled without harming the animal. Kane reflects on Lariat's incredible bravery. He saw her face down a feared animal, recognize its terror, and act with a powerful kindness he'd never witnessed before. Lariat apologizes again for him getting involved, but Kane dismisses it. He reveals a strange fact about himself, explaining that animals, especially dogs, have always disliked him. Surprised, Lariat says she's the complete opposite. She thinks animals are fond of her because she saved a puppy when she was a child. The memory seems to stir something as she quietly mentions her father passed away. The memory flashes back 15 years. A 5-year-old Lariat, with tears in her eyes, reminds her father he promised to show her newborn puppies. She begs to go with him, but he gently pats her head and apologizes, saying he is to leave. He promises they will all go see the puppies when her sister, B, returns victorious. To appease her, he makes a new promise, a cute doll if she waits patiently. Brightening up, she agrees and wishes him a safe return, a wish that would ultimately go unanswered. The cute doll her father had promised her tumbled to the floor. Lariat's mother collapsed in anguish, crying out that he had just gone to buy a gift. From a doorway, a young Lariat watched her brother, Ceres, grieve beside their father's casket. Fleeing the sorrowful scene, she ran down the long hall until she reached a fountain. Clasping her hands tightly, she prayed with all her might. She promised she would be a good child forever if only God would please bring her dad back. Her prayer was interrupted by a sudden splash. A tiny puppy had fallen into the fountain. Without a second thought, young Lariat waded into the cold water, pulling the struggling animal to safety. She held it close, reassuring the shivering creature that it was okay now. The puppy's warmth was a small comfort in her overwhelming grief, the first she'd ever actually felt. The memory sharpens, posing a dark question. Back in the present, Lariat stares intently at Ian, whose shocked expression says it all. She demands to know what happened to that puppy. Lariat brightly tells Kane her theory, wondering if the puppy was a fairy that gave her a gift to be liked by animals. Kane quietly agrees that might be the case. Taking this as an opening, she shyly invites him for tea at her palace. But his response is immediate and cold. He tells her that would be difficult, explaining he came to Salone to find a marriage partner. He then instructs her to refrain from approaching him from now on, leaving Lariat completely speechless at the sudden, harsh rejection. Lariat, looking defeated, asks if he already has someone else in mind. Kane denies this, but explains he has very specific criteria for a wife. His ideal partner is someone he will never love, a woman who will agree to a lifelong marriage in name only. Lariat is completely stunned by this cold declaration. He then explains that her presence makes finding such a person difficult and tells her to stay away from now on. As the harsh words sink in, Lariat slumps in her seat, utterly rejected. Lariat seemingly accepts his harsh rejection, meekly agreeing to be careful. As Kane turns to leave, she musters her courage and grabs his arm, stopping him. He turns back, surprised by her sudden action. She tells him she's thought about it and simply can't do as he asks. Looking him straight in the eyes, she confesses that even though he told her to keep her distance, she wants to get closer to him. Her bold, tearful declaration leaves him completely stunned, directly challenging his cold dismissal. Flustered by her own boldness, Lariat stumbles forward, but Kane catches her before she can fall. Now held securely in his arms, she looks up at him, completely caught off guard. He warns her that she will regret pursuing this. Unwavering, Lariat looks him straight in the eye and declares that she won't. Before the stunned Duke can process her defiance, she leans in. Lariat closes the remaining distance, sealing her words with a kiss that leaves him utterly frozen in shock. The memory of their encounter feels all too real. Sometime later, Kane stands alone at a garden party, looking completely drained. Prince Narcisse calls out, mocking him for dozing off and scaring the ladies. Internally, Kane is frustrated. He told the princess to restrain herself, yet he keeps having these vivid dreams about her, making him question his own mind. When another guest tries to make small talk about the beautiful scenery, Kane coldly dismisses the garden, noting only its economic practicality. He is clearly preoccupied, completely consumed by thoughts of Lariat. The other nobles are appalled by Kane's bluntness. They whisper among themselves, scandalized that he would call the magnificent royal garden merely economical. Paying them no mind, Kane's focus is broken by an approaching vehicle. As the royal limousine pulls up, the guests murmur, expecting to see Princess Beatrice. Instead, a different princess emerges. Lariat steps out gracefully, a picture of elegance with a serene smile. She opens her eyes, their green hue shining with a calm and confident resolve, ready to face the crowd. The nobles murmur in disappointment. They were hoping to see Princess Beatrice, not her older sister. One man, Jacques, openly gossips, calling Lariat pitiful for living in her beautiful sister's shadow. He remarks that while she's presentable on her own, she's destined to be second best. Suddenly, a hand clamps down hard on his shoulder. It's Kane's aide, Ian, whose eyes are filled with cold fury. He tells Jacques to watch his mouth, then publicly insults his intelligence, suggesting he get a better tutor to avoid disgracing his family name. Internally, Ian seethes. He can't believe how desperate people are to tear others down with such thoughtless insults. Just then, Jacques notices Lariat and panics, thinking she overheard him. He tries to stammer out an apology, but Lariat completely ignores him. With unwavering purpose, she walks directly to Prince Narcisse and asks for a private word. The prince, enjoying the attention from other ladies, flashes a slick smile. He declares that for his dear Lariat, he would move mountains just to make time for her. The prince takes Lariat for a private boat ride, away from the prying eyes of the party. From the shore, other ladies watch with envy, wishing they could be with the radiant prince. Kane also observes them from a distance, his expression unreadable. Lariat steels herself, knowing this is uncomfortable but necessary for her mission. Narcisse breaks the silence with a smirk, telling her she looks bored. Lariat asks if her predicament is amusing to him. He smoothly denies it, stating he's simply eager to hear her answer. Lariat finally speaks, telling the prince she has given his offer a lot of thought. She has been questioning his true intentions toward her sister and whether it's right to keep deceiving Kane. Narcisse listens intently, his face giving nothing away. Gathering her courage, Lariat realizes she can't keep harming the Duke, who has only ever helped her. She decides she won't let herself be used any longer. Looking directly at the prince, she makes a stunning declaration. She will never marry Duke Acheron. Prince Narcisse correctly guesses the reason for her defiance. She has grown fond of Kane. Lariat realizes she has completely misjudged the prince's intentions. He isn't just manipulating her, he's enjoying her struggle. With a chilling smile, Narcisse tells her to enjoy the opera that evening with her mind at ease. But his words are a lie. In a shocking move, he shoves her from the boat. Lariat is sent plunging into the cold water, his cruel message delivered loud and clear as she sinks beneath the surface. At the Salon Royal Opera House, Princess Beatrice and Lariat are immediately surrounded by reporters. The press bombards them with invasive questions about the rumored upcoming marriage. Later, inside their private box, Lariat notices her sister looks pale and unwell. Beatrice brushes it off, claiming she just has a lot on her mind. But their other sister, Ceres, cuts in with a cold accusation. She tells Lariat that if she was truly worried about Beatrice, she shouldn't have caused trouble in the first place, leaving Lariat stunned and speechless. The girl's mother appears, and she is not pleased. She scolds Lariat for her supposedly reckless behavior, questioning when she'll finally grow up. Beatrice tries to smooth things over, but their mother delivers a final, cutting remark, wishing Lariat were more like her sister or the prince before storming off. Her words sting, but Lariat's attention is stolen by a shocking sight. Prince Narcisse is talking with Grand Duke Kane. As Kane turns and seems to look her way, Lariat panics, wondering if he just witnessed her at her lowest point. As the opera begins, Lariat feels a wave of embarrassment. She laments that Kane only seems to witness her most humiliating moments. Looking up, she freezes. Grand Duke Kane is sitting in their private box, offering a small, unnerving smile. Lariat immediately questions his motives, certain there's a hidden reason for his calm demeanor. She steels herself, deciding she can't let her guard down for a second. Her spiraling thoughts are interrupted when Beatrice gently touches her hand, trying to get her sister's attention. Beatrice suddenly clutches her head, complaining of a headache and wanting to rest. She asks Lariat to call a servant for her. Lariat immediately reaches for the small bell and rings it, but no one comes. Confused, she tries again, wondering why there isn't a single servant around for her sister. As she stands up to investigate, she notices that Prince Narcisse is gone. A sudden, deep anxiety grips her. Telling Beatrice to stay put, Lariat heads for the door, unable to shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. Just as Lariat reaches the door, a man bursts in, shouting for the princess. He urgently grabs her arm, telling her he will explain later, but she is to leave immediately. Confused, Lariat tries to pull away, her thoughts racing to her sister still inside the room. Ignoring her protests, the man forcefully shoves both sisters out into the hallway. A split second later, a massive blast tears through the private box they just left. Lariat screams as the powerful shockwave sends them tumbling to the ground. Lariat struggles to get up, her ears ringing from the loud bang. Dazed, her first thought is of her sister. She spots Beatrice unconscious on the ground near their mother, Ceres, who is being ushered to safety by guards. Ceres frantically yells for Lariat to follow them immediately. Lariat weakly agrees, relieved that her family seems unharmed. But as she gets to her feet, a horrifying realization stops her cold. Her eyes widen in panic as she remembers the Grand Duke, Kane, was still inside the room that was just destroyed. Frozen with fear, Lariat stares at the ruined room where Kane was last seen. Just as despair sets in, a hand shoots out from the smoke and grabs her shoulder. It's Kane. He pulls her into a tight hold, his face marked by the explosion. Lariat points out that he's bleeding, her voice filled with alarm. Ignoring his own injuries, Kane simply asks why she is still there. Moved by his concern, she softly asks if he is in pain, her expression full of genuine worry for the first time. Kane, bleeding from his head, tells Lariat they need to evacuate immediately. He holds out his hand, offering to support her. She reaches for him, but as their hands touch, her legs suddenly give out from the shock. She stumbles forward, collapsing against his chest. Lariat apologizes, her legs trembling too much to stand. Ignoring his own injuries, Kane asks her to forgive his rudeness and sweeps her up into his arms. She protests, telling him to put her down, but he firmly insists on carrying her to safety. Held in Kane's arms, Lariat insists that she's fine, urging him to treat his wounds or save her sister first. Kane sharply cuts her off, telling her that is enough. Confused by his tone, Lariat looks up at him. With an intense, pained expression, he asks why she worries so much about others but doesn't know how to look after herself. His raw concern leaves her completely speechless, caught off guard by this unexpected display of emotion from the usually cold Grand Duke. Lariat is completely stunned by Kane's unexpected concern. He falls silent, his expression unreadable as he processes the moment. When her hand gently touches his chest, he flinches, a subtle reaction that doesn't go unnoticed. Ignoring the chaos around them, Kane resolutely carries her away from the danger. The next day, newspaper headlines explode with the story: a bomb attack at the Salon Royal Opera House. The incident is immediately labeled an act of terror, sending shockwaves through the nation and raising serious questions about the kingdom's security. The newspapers explode with news of the attack. Grand Duke Kane is hailed as a hero for preventing any casualties, but the kingdom's reputation takes a hit over its weak security. Meanwhile, a doctor examines Lariat, assuring her that she only suffered from shock and has no visible injuries. Once alone, Lariat lies back in bed, relieved that everyone is safe. However, she can't stop thinking about Kane's words. His raw, unexpected concern for her well-being was something she never anticipated, leaving her completely stunned. Lying in bed, Lariat can't stop replaying Kane's worried words from the night before. Though she knew she was fine, her heart pounded whenever she thought of him. Her thoughts are cut short by a sudden announcement from outside her room. It's Kane Akron. Startled, Lariat sits up and automatically invites him in. A second later, panic sets in as she realizes she's only wearing her nightdress. Just as a foot crosses the threshold, she frantically tells him to wait and not come inside. But it's too late. Kane steps inside just as Lariat scrambles to cover herself. He freezes instantly, his face turning bright red at the sight of her in a simple nightdress. The moment is broken when the door slams shut. From the other side, a mortified Lariat apologizes and begs him for a moment to change. The composed Grand Duke slumps against the wall, completely flustered. When they finally meet properly outside, he avoids her gaze, asking if she's well enough to be out of bed after her ordeal. Lariat brushes off his worry, insisting she's much sturdier than she looks and recovers quickly. Kane, however, isn't buying it. He gives her a serious lecture on the psychological toll of such events, pointing out that she's always been careless with her own safety. Overwhelmed by his nagging, Lariat quickly agrees to be careful, mentally renaming him the Lecture Duke. His earnest concern strikes her as unexpectedly amusing, and she can't hold back a smile. Seeing her laugh, Kane finally relaxes, relieved that she truly seems to be okay. With a moment of resolve, Lariat asks Kane to sit with her before he leaves. She sincerely thanks him for saving her life, but he brushes it off, stating it was simply his duty. Lariat smiles, confidently telling him that's a lie. She points out that with his family's fate on the line, he wouldn't have risked his life for something as simple as duty. She insists she now understands what truly drove him in that moment, leaving the stoic Grand Duke utterly confused by her mysterious declaration. Lariat praises Kane for his blunt and kind nature, causing the usually composed Grand Duke to blush. The light mood shifts as she asks if he knew about the attack beforehand. Kane admits he smelled gunpowder and suspected someone else was pulling the strings, even though the culprit claimed to be a stalker. Deciding she can no longer deceive him, Lariat makes a shocking confession. She reveals the true mastermind is Prince Narcisse. She explains the prince discovered her sister's pregnancy before marriage and has been using it to threaten her, leaving Kane completely stunned. Lariat confesses the full extent of the prince's plot. He ordered her to seduce and marry Kane, tasked with uncovering his weaknesses within a year. She explains the recent attack was likely a warning for her refusal. Bowing her head, she sincerely apologizes for deceiving him. With no proof to offer, she braces for his disbelief. But Kane's response is shockingly simple. He says he understands and that she must have endured it all alone. He believes her because she is, in his eyes, someone worthy of complete trust. Lariat is stunned by his complete trust, thinking that not even her own family would have believed her so easily. Kane quickly pieces things together, asking if the threat started the day she arrived in Salon. She quietly confirms. He now understands the recent attack was the prince's retaliation for her refusal. A wave of regret hits him as he recalls his own harsh words, not knowing she was enduring this burden alone. Seeing his reaction, Lariat confesses that even though she used him, her feelings for him are absolutely genuine. Kane questions how Lariat can confess her feelings so easily after everything she's endured. He takes responsibility, stating that he and Prince Narcisse are the ones who should apologize for putting her through this. Lariat insists he did nothing wrong, but Kane has already pieced together the prince's terrifying endgame. He realizes the attack was a calculated move, an excuse for Narcisse to station Imperial guards in Salon and seize control. Every move was a calculated step in the prince's ruthless game to claim the throne for himself. Kane lays out the prince's entire scheme. Salon's central location makes it a crucial piece on the political chessboard. By controlling it, Narcisse can keep Kane's pro-princess faction in check. The prince is ruthlessly exploiting Lariat's connection to her sister and Beatrice's gentle nature. Clenching his jaw, Kane declares this is all part of the struggle for the throne. He then makes a solemn vow. He will take full responsibility and protect Lariat, ensuring there are no more victims. Stunned, she quietly asks if he means it. With just those words, her anxiety begins to fade. With Kane's vow echoing in her mind, Lariat feels a wave of clarity. She finally knows what she must do to protect everyone. Looking him straight in the eye, she asks him to marry her. Her plan is simple. For 1 year, she will act as a double agent, feeding the prince false information while uncovering all his weaknesses. But Kane immediately rejects the idea of a temporary arrangement. He reminds her that he needs a political wife who will never, ever fall in love with him. Hearing this, Lariat realizes she fits his most crucial condition perfectly. Kane corrects her, laying out the new plan. Lariat must stop approaching Prince Narcisse entirely. Instead, her new mission is to create a public distraction by pretending to seduce Kane himself. While she draws everyone's attention, he will personally monitor the prince's activities. A bit flustered, Lariat meekly agrees to the terms. As she leaves the Acheron estate, a wave of relief washes over her. Even though her initial proposal was technically rejected, she feels refreshed and hopeful, humming a tune as she walks through a sunny garden. Feeling much lighter, Lariat resolves to stick close to Kane and play her part in their new plan. She immediately seeks him out, asking a servant to direct her to the riding grounds. However, an unsettling voice stops her in her tracks. Prince Narcisse appears, his smile doing little to hide his displeasure. He expresses his disappointment that she was distracted by another man. His friendly facade drops as he darkly questions if she fears for her life. He correctly deduces her recent boldness is because she has gotten closer to his cousin, Kane. Prince Narcisse confesses he was simply amused, finding it entertaining to see the great Grand Duke Acheron lose his composure over her. Disgusted, Lariat tells him he has crossed a line and demands that he leave her alone. Ignoring her, Narcisse corners her and insists they talk. His friendly mask disappears completely as he makes a chilling threat against her family. He mentions her sister by name, implying a terrible fate would await Bea if Lariat continues to disobey his orders. Lariat freezes, horrified by the depths of his cruelty. With his threat hanging in the air, Prince Narcisse smugly confirms that Lariat understands the consequences. Left with no choice, Lariat is forced to accompany him, her hands clenched in silent fury. They ride in a car, but as the prince starts to speak, the vehicle jerks to a sudden, violent stop. Lariat is thrown forward from the impact. Annoyed and confused, she looks up to see who dares block their path. Her eyes widen when she sees a lone figure standing before them, a boot planted firmly on the ground. The figure blocking their path is none other than Ian, the Grand Duke's loyal aide. Calm and composed on his horse, Ian directly addresses the prince. He cuts through the tension with a simple excuse, informing Narcisse that the princess has a prior engagement with him. Amused, the prince challenges him, asking what would happen if he refused. Ian's gaze doesn't waver as he implies severe consequences, confident that Narcisse understands the warning. Defeated, the prince sarcastically yields and tells Lariat to go. Lariat quickly exits the car, calling out to Ian as she approaches. She asks him to excuse her for a moment, a request that leaves him slightly puzzled. As she moves, she suddenly loses her footing and stumbles directly toward him. Ian reacts in a flash, catching her with ease. Without missing a beat, he pulls her up onto his horse, settling her securely in front of him. With Lariat in his care, he calmly announces that they will be taking their leave, riding away from the scene. From his carriage, Prince Narcisse clenches his fist in frustration, watching them ride away. Meanwhile, Lariat asks Ian if this sort of interference from the prince is common. Ian confirms it is, explaining he has been keeping a close watch on Narcisse. He reveals that the prince took advantage of the brief moment he stepped away, an opportunity created by her family's misplaced trust in him. Upon their arrival, Ian offers to help her from the horse, but a flustered Lariat insists she can get down on her own. Kane offers to help Lariat, mostly for his own peace of mind. As he moves to assist, she suddenly loses her footing and tumbles forward. He reacts instantly, catching her securely in his arms and asking if she's all right. After thanking him, a confused Lariat mentions that she felt something hard and blunt press against her from his pocket. The innocent observation catches the stoic Grand Duke completely off guard. A deep blush spreads across his face, leaving him flustered and at a total loss for words. After the intense ride, Kane turns away from Lariat, a hand pressed to the back of his neck. He's clearly still flustered by her earlier, innocent observation. Lariat watches his stiff posture and completely misunderstands his reaction. Worried she has made him uncomfortable, she wonders if her touching him was unpleasant. To break the awkward silence, she calls out to him. She apologizes sincerely, explaining that she feels like she is constantly indebted to him for his help. He simply clears his throat, still unable to look at her. Kane dismisses her apology as nonsense, stating a superior shouldn't be bothered by a subordinate's tasks. Lariat is confused by his choice of words and corrects him, declaring that he's not her superior, he's her friend. The word catches the Grand Duke completely off guard. He coldly informs her that he has no intention of befriending a woman he doesn't plan to marry. When she sees no issue with having male friends after marriage, Kane scoffs. He declares that her view on relationships is something he can never agree with. Lariat dismisses his point, stating the law allowing concubines is outdated and will soon be abolished. Thinking on her feet, she asks if they can become friends if she marries him. Kane is taken aback by her logic, but reminds her he already refused that offer. She presses on, explaining the political benefits of their union and how it would help them deal with Prince Narcisse. Kane coldly states he has no intention of marrying her and asks if she has considered that she would be a divorcee once their contract ended. Kane raises a serious point, reminding Lariat that marriage would require her to fulfill her duty of producing an heir for his family. He questions if she truly understands the implications of that responsibility. To his absolute disbelief, Lariat eagerly agrees, revealing her plan was to secure the pregnancy before the wedding. She reasons it's the fastest way to get married, citing her sister's own success. A completely flustered Kane asks if she even grasps the process. Lariat confidently recalls her sister's fairy tale explanation that children are simply born from deep love. Kane is completely floored by her innocent explanation, covering his face as he questions the education system in her kingdom. Overwhelmed by her logic, he mutters her title and abruptly walks away, leaving a confused Lariat behind. She calls out to him, but he stops, caught in his own internal struggle. He thinks to himself that the princess has no idea. She is completely unaware of the intense and improper thoughts the man standing before her has been having about her every single day. Her innocent words only make his turmoil worse. Just as he's about to leave, Kane suddenly turns and pins Lariat against a tree. He asks if she has any real understanding of physical desire. Her confused silence is all the answer he needs. Deciding to call her bluff, Kane declares that he will teach her what true intimacy entails, right then and there. He gives her a final choice. She can stop him if she is afraid, but if she does, she must promise to never bring up marriage again. The decision is now entirely hers to make. Lariat watches, frozen, as Kane slowly pulls his glove off with his teeth. He drops it to the ground, closing the distance between them. He takes her hand and slides his other one down to her side, making her gasp. She asks what he's doing, completely flustered by the sudden contact. He simply reminds her of his promise to show her what it really means to share love. Leaning in close, he explains that conceiving in air means sharing affection in a very specific, physical way. Realization dawns, and she panics. As Kane leans in, Lariat asks him to wait, her voice trembling. He pauses, calmly asking if she dislikes his touch. Blushing, she admits the feeling isn't bad, just strange and completely new to her. Then, shocking them both, she finds the courage to ask if they could go a little further. He clicks his tongue in surprise before indulging her request. The sensation is embarrassing, yet Lariat realizes she doesn't want him to stop. His lesson in intimacy was having an unexpected effect on her. Lariat looks up at Kane, her heart pounding as she nervously asks what comes next. A faint smirk plays on his lips as he asks if she's truly curious. Before she can even process his question, Kane suddenly sweeps her off her feet, lifting her into his arms. Completely stunned by the bold move, Lariat buries her blushing face in his chest. The unexpected closeness is overwhelming, and she has to mentally coach herself not to be scared of what he has planned for their private lesson. Just as Lariat convinces herself to see this through, Kane decides it would be best to stop here. His sudden withdrawal sends her into a panic. Thinking fast, she grabs onto his vest, startling him. He tells her to wait, pleading for her to stop, but she won't listen. Looking him straight in the eye, she makes a bold demand for him to kiss her. She believes a kiss will tell her everything she needs to know about whether they can truly be together. Kane is left completely stunned. Lariat recalls her own bold declaration that a kiss would reveal if they were meant to be. Hearing this, Kane looks down at her, a faint blush on his cheeks as he asks if she's truly sure. Lariat meets his gaze and confirms her belief with a simple, determined yes. With her permission, Kane warns her to prepare herself and leans in. He closes the final bit of distance, and the resulting kiss is far more intense than either of them expected, promising to change their dynamic completely. The kiss is far more intense than Lariat anticipated. Her heart races and her body feels feverish, yet she finds herself wanting more. A single tear escapes as she leans into the moment. But just as she gets lost in the sensation, Kane abruptly pulls away. He looks completely startled, his face flushed and his breathing uneven. Surprised by his sudden withdrawal, Lariat looks up at him, her eyes wide as she quietly asks him to continue for just a little longer. Kane pulls back, his face flushed as he insists they should stop there. The sudden separation leaves Lariat unsteady on her feet, and she stumbles forward right into his chest. He catches her, calling out her title in alarm. Lariat leans against him, mustering her courage. She quietly tells him that she thinks she can do it with him. When he prompts her to speak, she looks up and clarifies her surprising statement. She thinks they can have a child together. Kane freezes, completely stunned by her bold declaration. Kane's mind goes completely blank. Overwhelmed by her own bold move, Lariat sinks to the floor. The Grand Duke, blushing furiously, begs her to please refrain from saying such things. Later that night, Lariat collapses onto her bed, completely drained. She can't believe how quickly the day passed. On top of her intense interactions with Kane, she was buried under a mountain of wedding preparations. From endless paperwork to checking decoration samples for the reception, the princess was feeling the pressure of her rushed engagement. Lariat can't seem to sleep, her heart pounding in her chest. She replays the evening's events, baffled by how Kane just abruptly left after their intense conversation. The memory of being in his arms is a new and unfamiliar feeling for her. As she recalls the moment their faces were just inches apart, a strange warmth spreads through her body. A small, knowing smirk appears on her face as she realizes the undeniable effect the Grand Duke is starting to have on her. Lying in bed, Lariat finds sleep impossible. Her thoughts drift back to Kane's embrace, and she admits his touch was far more tender than her own. She wonders if it's her inexperience that makes the difference. This line of thinking leads to an obvious conclusion. The Duke must have plenty of experience. She imagines him with another woman, and a sudden, Sharp irritation takes hold. Lariat is baffled by her own reaction. One second her heart was fluttering, and the next, she's feeling inexplicably upset. The pleasant flutter in Lariat's chest quickly turns to irritation. She tries to convince herself it's normal for a man like Kane to be worldly, but the thought still bothers her. Forcing the issue from her mind, she finally drifts off to sleep. The next day brings a more immediate problem, a wardrobe crisis. With her sister's wedding only a day away, time is running out. Lariat knows she needs a firm answer from the Duke now, and wonders what outfit will finally get him to agree to her plan. Lariat carefully considers her outfit, deciding her usual cute dresses won't be enough to sway the Duke. She requests a new look from her maids, something more mature and dignified, like her sister Beatrice. Though surprised by the sudden shift in style, the maids quickly get to work. They transform the princess, dressing her in an elegant gown and a sophisticated hat. Absolutely thrilled with her new look, Lariat declares she's ready to go out and finally get an answer from Kane. Just as Lariat is ready to head out, a maid informs her that the queen is on the line. Confused by the sudden call, she picks up the phone. Her plans come to a screeching halt when her mother forbids her from leaving the palace for the day. Lariat argues that her sister's wedding is tomorrow, but the queen is unmoved. She scolds Lariat for spending her time with a man she calls good for nothing. Stunned by the harsh insult against Kane, Lariat is left speechless as her day is completely ruined. The queen coldly informs Lariat that Beatrice has told her everything about her misguided interest in the Duke. She warns her daughter to stop being foolish and stay away from Kane, unless she intends to become his mistress. Furious, Lariat yells back, defending the Duke's character and insisting he's not that kind of man. Unimpressed, the queen drops a bombshell. She claims Kane is already in a secret affair with his fiancée, Princess Tussle, and is only looking for a wife to cover it up. Lariat freezes, completely stunned by the shocking accusation. Lariat is in disbelief as the queen continues, claiming Kane is only looking for a wife to cover up an existing affair. Lariat fires back, questioning how her mother could believe tabloid gossip after their own family suffered from rumors. Unmoved, the queen accuses her daughter of being completely bewitched. Reaching her limit, Lariat says she's done talking and abruptly hangs up. She dismisses her staff, needing to be alone. As she sits in silence, she's shocked by her own thoughts, realizing she's truly sick of her mother's behavior. Lariat's thoughts drift to Kane, recalling how he's always caring for others but neglects himself. Suddenly feeling unwell, she wonders if she's caught a chill because of him. Her troubled thoughts are cut short when someone calls her name. It can't be. She rushes outside and stops in her tracks. Standing in the garden is the Grand Duke himself. The awful mood from her mother's phone call instantly vanishes. Just the sight of him is enough to make her feel completely better. With a bright smile, Lariat asks Kane to wait, telling him she has something to show. He watches, confused, as she makes a grand reveal from a balcony above. She's dressed up beautifully. Lariat asks if he thinks she looks pretty, admitting she put in the effort just for him. She was disappointed when her house arrest meant she might not get to show him. Kane is completely speechless. Noticing his silence, Lariat playfully wonders if he's in trouble, asking if he's accidentally fallen for the woman he's supposed to marry without feelings. Kane flushes, flatly denying that he's fallen for her. Lariat feigns disappointment, then pivots to a more serious topic. She correctly guesses he's in a difficult position, seeking a marriage partner to quell the rumors about him and his cousin, Princess Penthesilea. He confirms that marriage is the fastest way to end the scandal. His mind flashes to the fabricated news story, a dirty political scheme by Narcisse's followers. Whoever becomes his wife will be at the center of a vicious power struggle, a role unsuited for someone whose heart already flutters for him. Kane wrestles with his thoughts, recalling his family's code. Reason must always come before emotion. Steeling himself, he tells Lariat he came to apologize. He explains that he made a mistake he couldn't take responsibility for, acting on impulse with the royal woman. He offers to pay any compensation she demands. Hurt by his detached words, Lariat clenches her fist. She refuses his offer, firmly stating that the kiss and the talk of marriage were her own ideas, so he has nothing to apologize for. Lariat changes tactics, suggesting they work together against Prince Narcisse as colleagues. With a practiced smile, she declares her next kiss will be with someone else, adding that she'll be less foolish next time. Kane's hand instinctively tightens around hers as the thought of her with another man hits him. She turns to leave, thanking him for the memory and saying a final goodbye. Unable to let her walk away, Kane calls out for her to wait. Just as she turns, the tense moment is broken by her pet bird, Shushu, who flutters down with a happy chirp. Kane warns the bird about hawks, telling it to get back inside. But as Shushu takes flight, he leaps onto the balcony railing with surprising agility, leaving Lariat stunned. She can hardly believe the stoic Grand Duke just climbed the estate like a squirrel. Once he has the bird, he asks where she got it. Lariat explains Shushu was a gift from Prince Narcisse. Just as Kane denies that the bird is his, something knocks her hat back. A small boy suddenly launches himself into her arms, joyfully calling Kane Big Brother. The small boy, now properly dressed, cheerfully introduces himself as Ian, Kane's little brother. Lariat is charmed, remarking that she must have seen him in a prophetic dream. But Ian corrects her, insisting it wasn't a dream and that she even named him Shushu. Lariat is stunned, as that's the name she gave her pet bird. Ian then reveals the unbelievable truth. He is Shushu, and he can transform into a skylark. Before he can spill any more family secrets, Kane firmly steps in, telling the boy he has said quite enough. Lariat tries to laugh it off, asking Kane why he's stopping Ian over a harmless joke. After a tense moment, Kane reluctantly agrees, but his hesitation is glaringly obvious. Lariat's mind races, recalling the dark rumors about House Acheron and whispers of a hereditary disease. She connects this to Kane's need for a wife who would keep a family secret. The unbelievable truth dawns on her. The Acheron family can transform into animals. When she asks if this is real, Kane's silence is all the confirmation she needs. With a troubled expression, Ian confirms her deduction is correct. Lariat quickly asks if Kane can also transform, but the boy shakes his head, clarifying that only his siblings have this ability. He explains that the cause for these involuntary transformations is still unknown, leaving Lariat speechless. Before she can react, Ian rushes forward and embraces her tightly. Looking up with a bright, earnest face, he makes a heartfelt plea for Lariat to marry his big brother. With an innocent smile, Ian asks Lariat if she'll live with them once she marries his brother. Flustered, Lariat insists she and the Duke are not in that kind of relationship. Seeing Ian's crestfallen expression, she begins to explain they are just colleagues, but Kane suddenly interrupts her. He places a hand firmly on her shoulder and announces his decision to the room. He will marry the princess. Lariat is completely shocked by his abrupt proposal. Meanwhile, an overjoyed Ian clings to his brother's leg, excitedly asking Lariat to come home with them. Later, Lariat and Kane have a private discussion. He apologizes for his earlier forwardness, but she tells him not to worry. Getting serious, she asks if he truly wants this marriage or if he's just acting out of obligation. Kane stays quiet, weighing the consequences. He knows that if they were to marry and then separate, the social fallout would ruin her reputation. The right choice would have been to refuse her. Instead of answering, he leans in close, leaving Lariat completely stunned by his sudden proximity. As Kane gazes at Lariat, he battles a deep, possessive impulse to pull her into his world and keep her there forever. Realizing he is already lost to his own instincts, he sits down to discuss the contract terms. Kane lays out his shocking conditions. The marriage will last 1 year, and she must provide an Acheron heir. In return, he promises to protect her and her entire country, Salone. Before Lariat can process the sheer scale of his power, he announces their first step is to meet her mother, the queen. Lariat grows nervous, explaining that meeting her mother isn't a good idea, but Kane confidently states he will handle it. He tells her not to worry and to simply enjoy her sister's wedding, declaring it is a husband's duty to protect his wife. This old-fashioned sentiment flusters her. He then gets serious, stating he expects her to fulfill all her wifely duties. Realizing this means providing an heir, Lariat steals her resolve. Noticing her tension, Kane leans in close, promising that he is patient and will wait until after the wedding night. Lariat tells herself that a marriage requires effort from both sides and resolves to do her part. Before she can think of a plan, Kane makes his move. He sits down beside her, leaning in close to declare that he will start loving her today. To make their sudden union believable to outsiders, he promises to act passionately in love with her. His actions immediately follow his words as he closes the remaining space between them, causing her to gasp when he suddenly joins her on the bed. Lariat is completely flustered as Kane closes in, his face buried near her neck. He quietly tells her to lower her voice, explaining his acting alone won't be enough to convince everyone. To make their relationship look real, he insists she must get used to his touch. Just as she's trapped against the chair, a sudden knock at the door makes them both freeze. A maid announces she's there to discuss the reception dress. Lariat panics, realizing it will be a complete disaster if anyone discovers the Duke in her room. With the maid waiting at the door, Kane calmly decides their acting practice is over for the day. He pulls back from a flustered Lariat, smoothly wishing her sweet dreams before promising to see her at the venue tomorrow. Before she can even respond, he's gone. Lariat looks toward the balcony, realizing with a start that he escaped the same way he came in. After nervously letting the maid enter, the scene shifts. The next morning, the sound of bells rings through the air, signaling the arrival of their wedding day. At her sister Beatrice's wedding, Lariat is stunned. The noble guests are already gossiping about the groom, a handsome commoner named Jacques. Their whispers turn to outright shock when they see Duke Kane Acheron serving as his groomsman. Lariat's other sister, Ceres, explains that the Salone nobles had refused the role, creating a huge problem. But with Kane lending his powerful support, the entire dynamic shifted. His presence alone was enough to legitimize the marriage in the eyes of the critical aristocrats, silencing them completely. Lariat looks at the groom, Jacques, remembering his vow to win over her mother's heart by himself. Standing next to Kane, she's confused when he suddenly flinches away from her, his ear turning red. Before she can figure it out, the priest's voice rings out, declaring Princess Beatrice and Jacques officially husband and wife. Seeing her sister so happy in her new husband's arms, Lariat tears up. A moment later, Kane silently offers her a handkerchief. Surprised by the gesture, she quietly accepts it with a word of thanks. As Lariat dabs her eyes, Kane quietly tells her that she is quite beautiful today. Mistaking his compliment for one meant for the bride, Lariat happily agrees, adding that her sister looks like the protagonist of a story. After a moment of confusion, Kane tries to clarify that he was referring to her, but she still doesn't catch on. Finally, he leans in close, leaving no room for misunderstanding. He states directly that the person he finds beautiful is Princess Lariat, leaving her completely stunned by the blunt confession. At the wedding reception hall, Lariat is busy directing the staff for the final preparations. Suddenly, Kane appears, surprising her. He asks why she isn't resting, noting that there's still time before the party. Onlookers whisper, wondering if he came just for her. Kane cuts through their curiosity and states directly that he came out early simply because he wanted to see her as soon as possible. Before Lariat can process his words, he leans in and places a gentle kiss on her forehead, leaving everyone speechless with his bold public gesture. Kane leans in close, reminding Lariat that he taught her to speak to him more casually. Flustered, she remembers his instruction but is still getting used to the sudden change. To push things along, Kane tells her it would be better if they appeared intimate to everyone. He then takes her hand, leaving them both momentarily surprised by the contact. Suddenly, a smooth voice interrupts them. Prince Narcisse walks over with a suspicious smile, asking when the two of them became so close and catching them completely off guard. Kane calmly acknowledges Prince Narcisse's arrival as onlookers continue to gossip. They wonder about the princess and the Grand Duke, recalling that her handkerchief even had his crest on it. Before the prince can press further, Jacques St. Cyr interrupts, reminding Lariat that it's time to see her sister, Beatrice. Relieved, Lariat quickly excuses herself, casually asking Kane to take care of things. Prince Narcisse's smile fades as he overhears her informal tone, realizing their relationship is far more intimate than he originally thought. After Lariat's departure, Prince Narcisse turns to Kane, sarcastically calling it a joyous day. His probing is interrupted by an announcement. Princess Beatrice is about to toss her bouquet. Narcisse points this out to Kane, sarcastically calling it the wedding's highlight. Unfazed, Kane quietly swirls the ice in his glass. His attention is fixed on Beatrice, whom he internally praises as the glory of the land. Noticing Kane's intense focus, Narcisse just pours another drink, a knowing smile playing on his lips as he watches his cousin. Prince Narcisse pours a deep red drink, his smile not reaching his eyes. He tells Kane that, like Lariat, he also loves dogs. He then poses a dark question, comparing someone to a fiercely loyal fighting dog. What would happen, he wonders, if you took away the master such a creature loved so dearly? At that exact moment, Beatrice tosses her bouquet into the air. While the crowd screams in excitement, the flowers sail right over their heads, heading straight for an unsuspecting Kane, who looks up in surprise. The bouquet sails through the air and lands perfectly in Kane's lap. The crowd murmurs in surprise before breaking into cheerful congratulations, telling the Grand Duke he must get married soon. Prince Narcisse joins in, laughing that it seems Kane is next in line for marriage. But Kane isn't fazed. He stands up, thanks the prince for their pleasant conversation, and then hands the bouquet directly to him. With a final, pointed thank you for the advice on obsession, Kane leaves a stunned Narcisse holding the flowers. With Narcisse still reeling, Kane calmly states he will behave himself until Lariat accepts his proposal. The prince is floored, stammering in disbelief that Kane would propose to someone. Kane looks him dead in the eye and asks for his blessing, dropping a final bombshell. It was love at first sight. As he walks away, leaving Narcisse to process this shocking news, the scene shifts to the evening party. A man named Jacques Saint-Cyr charmingly requests a dance from Lariat. She playfully agrees, calling him brother-in-law, as they head off. From a nearby table, two noble women observe the party. One remarks on how happy Riette looks but worries she'll make a mistake and cause her usual trouble. A senior duchess gently chides her, saying that on a day like this, Riette deserves to enjoy herself. As Lariat twirls on the dance floor with Jacques, a picture of pure joy, the duchess has a hopeful thought. She muses that Riette might just bring someone home to marry soon, convinced that anyone who saw her looking so radiant would surely fall in love. As Lariat continues to dance, onlookers are captivated, wondering if she was always this beautiful. One ambitious noble even considers making his move. After the dance, Lariat finally sits down, wincing at her sore feet. She realizes she was having too much fun to even notice the pain. Jacques fondly comments on how much her dancing has improved. Their moment is cut short when Prince Narcisse approaches, asking for a private word. Lariat crosses her arms, coldly stating she has nothing to say to him. She reminds him that his plan worked perfectly, as she now has a proposal. Prince Narcisse extends his hand with a devious smile. He threatens to embarrass Lariat in front of everyone unless she takes it. She knows she's trapped. Ignoring him would only cause a bigger scene. With a frustrated sigh, Lariat reluctantly agrees to speak with him, but only for a moment. As she places her hand in his, a dark look crosses the prince's face. He thinks to himself that a moment is all he needs, his intentions clearly malicious as he tightens his grip.